Good morning, everyone. We stand here as part of the Hispanic Caucus, the Black Caucus, the Tri-Caucus in general, to bring forth a series of bills that will help our military families, to separate families that have contributed to our nation's security is unacceptable. I'm here joined today by the Juarez family. Come join me. Father Timo Juarez, a U.S. citizen, Mom Alejandra, and their children Pamela and Estella. Mr. Juarez was an infantryman who served in the Marines from 1995 to 1999 with 1st Battalion, 1st and then after that 8th Marine Regiment. He took part in operations in Albania in 1997. He also served in Africa in the Democratic Republic of Congo and then deployed with the 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines through South America. After his service in the Marines, he joined the Florida Army National Guard in Orlando and was deployed to Iraq in 2003. Timo Juarez earned multiple commendations, including 2 National Defense Service Medals, an Army Commendation Medal, and numerous awards. Yet on June 21st, our constituent and friend, his wife Alejandra, who is joined with me today, is to report for deportation. Despite the fact that Alejandra stood by his side and helped raise their family while Mr. Juarez was defending our freedoms abroad. We've sent letters to the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Nielsen, USCIS Director Cisna, and ICE Deputy Director Homan regarding a new review of Ms. Juarez's case. This is just one of many military families who now find themselves at risk of deportation and being torn apart due to the current policies of the Trump administration and their push for hardline deportation policies. With that, I want to thank Ms. Juarez for joining us, and I want to introduce my next colleague who's going to be joining us, Congressman Joaquin Castro of Texas. Thank you, Congressman Castro, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Darren. I'm Joaquin Castro, and I represent a wonderful part of the state of Texas, the city of San Antonio. Few folks realize that U.S. citizenship is not required for military service, and even fewer know that our nation has gone as far as deporting veterans. So last June, my colleagues and I in the Congressional Hispanic Caucus visited the Deported Veterans Support House in Tijuana, Mexico, to learn more about this issue. We heard stories about their service, deportation, and separation from family in the United States. Private First Class Joel Diaz Rincon served in the Marines from 1991 to 1994 before sustaining an injury while on guard duty in Okinawa, Japan. He earned the National Defense Service Medal, Sea Service Deployment Ribbon, and Rifle Expert, and was honorably discharged from the Marines. Ultimately, Joel was deported from the United States and is separated from his American daughter and family. Joel is just one of more than 230 veterans who have been deported, according to the ACLU. Congress can and should pass legislation that ensures lawful permanent residents serving the United States military become citizens. And we need to make sure that deported veterans have access to the benefits they earned and can receive medical care at VA facilities, another major problem for these deported veterans. Most importantly, we must find a way to ensure that the United States does not deport our veterans like Joel. The tens of thousands of people who have volunteered to defend our nation should not face the risk of deportation after they complete their service. There is a strong bipartisan support among Americans to do the right thing by these veterans. We owe Joel and so many others a bright future after their service to our country. Next, I'd like to introduce a congresswoman from California, my colleague on the Foreign Affairs Committee, Norma Torres.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Castro and also Representative Soto, for bringing us together today once again to bring awareness and to bring information and hopefully bring justice to all of the families that have been impacted by this massive deportation force that President Trump has embarked on. As a mother of a veteran myself, I know firsthand the toll that separation takes on our families when our sons and daughters join the military. Our families, who already sacrifice so much, should never have to live in fear of being torn apart by a deportation force. While military spouses may not have served in our military, they play a vital role, oftentimes being the only sole provider in the household while their husband is serving abroad. They deserve our support, not deportation papers. The family of my constituent, Pedro Ayala, is one example. Pedro was proudly serving our nation overseas during the Iraq War. His wife, Elizabeth Martinez Munoz, was left as the primary caretaker of their family when she received a notice of deportation. Our veteran spouses don't deserve to live in constant fear that they'll be ripped apart from her family. Our brave veterans were willing to put their lives on the line for our country, and the very least that we can do is help them and ensure them that their families are going to be safe at home. I join my colleagues today to call on this administration to stop this nonsense deportation and to assist and find a way to help these spouses stay home and allow our military personnel to simply do the job that they have been ordered to do and serve their nation at peace, knowing that the rest of us are taking care of their families. It is my pleasure now to introduce Representative Anthony Brown from Maryland.
Thank you. It's a true honor to be here today. I want to thank Representative Soto for introducing this legislation, but I'm appalled that we have to stand here today in an effort to pass a law to protect military families from deportation. I spent 30 years on active and reserve duty. I spent a year in Iraq. And when I was in Iraq, I served side by side with patriotic Americans. Some of us were citizens, others were not. Some had documentation and others did not. But each and every one of us performed our mission because we loved our country, and I had the honor to serve with patriotic men and women. It makes no sense, and it is dangerous when we ask men and women to put on the uniform to serve our country and to protect and defend our nation when we at home are not serving them by protecting and defending their spouses. There are roughly 12,000 service members who have a spouse or family member who is subject to deportation. Imagine you receive orders like men and women in the Maryland National Guard. My office has received telephone calls asking for help. You get a set of orders to deploy to some faraway place in defense of our country, and you continue to worry about whether you will come home to your husband or wife. You worry about what will happen to your children if and when your wife or husband is deported. We have policies in place to protect family members, yet the Department of Homeland Security is stripping those protections by issuing deportation orders. We can do better, and we must do better. But this administration, whether it's their assault on Dreamers, whether it's their assault on TPS recipients, have sent a clear notice to immigrants: be on guard, because you too may be subject to deportation. But I want to know where President Trump stands, because I think I know where the Vice President stands, because he said back in 2010, and he joined both Democrats and Republicans to press the Department of Homeland Security to use all of their power at their disposal to protect military families from deportation. So I'm calling on the Vice President to rein in the President, to rein in the Department of Homeland Security to ensure that military spouses and family members will not be deported. We need to do that for the effectiveness of our fighting force. We need to do that for unit readiness, but most importantly, we need to do it to the men and women who answer the call to defend and protect our country. Thank you, and with that, I'd like to turn it over to a representative from, I'll turn it back to Representative Soto.
First, thank you for your service, Congressman Brown, and thank you also for appearing today. Yo quiero también para introducir la familia Juarez en español. Para separar nuestras familias militares cuando ellos están defendiendo nuestra libertad, nuestra nación, no está aceptable. La familia Juárez, Padre Temo Juárez, un ciudadano de los Estados Unidos, Madre Alejandra y sus hijos, Pamela y Estela, está conmigo en este día. Señor Juárez era un miembro de los Marines, 1995 a 1999, con el primer batallón y el 8th regimiento. Él era en las operaciones en Albania, en el Congo, y él sirvió con los Marines en Irak en 2003. Cuando Temo Juárez era recibiendo muchas recomendaciones y defendiendo nuestra seguridad, nuestra nación, su esposa era recibiendo noticias por deportación. Está imposible por mi corazón, por mí para entender que nosotros estamos empujando, señor Juárez, para defender nuestro país y está empujando a su esposa para salir en el mismo momento. Y nosotros enviamos cartas al secretario Nielsen, director Cisna y deputy director Oman para cambiar esta decisión muy terrible y contra nuestra seguridad de nuestra nación. Y la familia Juárez es una de miles de familias que están en esa situación ahora, donde ellos están apoyando la familia en nuestro hogar, defendiendo nuestro país atrás, y ahora tiene noticias de deportación. With that, I'm honored to be joined here by Mrs. Alejandra Juarez. Thank you, Mrs. Juarez, for joining us today. Your presence honors us.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. I would like to start by thanking Congressman Darren Soto and the members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus for inviting me to speak today. My name is Alejandra Juarez. My husband, Timo, a former Marine and a Guardsman who served Africa, South America, and Iraq. We have two daughters, Pamela and Estela. They're here with me today. We live in Davenport, Florida. Mr. Congressman Darren Soto is my local congressman. When you ask your military, Mr. President Donald Trump, when you ask your military personnel to serve this country, they leave behind their families, their kids, their house. We, the spouses, are left behind with big responsibilities to take care of the hustle for when they come back and if they come back. When you deported me, what message are you giving to the military who sacrificed so much for this beautiful country on behalf of all Americans? Is that the message you want to send, that you don't care about military families? My husband committed so much for this country. He voted for you. He voted for you, Mr. Donald Trump. All we asking for the government is to have the same commitment to our military personnel. I'm not pleading on behalf of myself because I know I did something wrong, but I'm pleading on behalf of my family. You sent me home. They will suffer. They're suffering now because they know that I might not be here to raise them. Please take my family on consideration. I'm a military wife. Regardless whether I have a green card or not, I'm a military wife. Thank you, everyone.
Puede ser un poquito en español.
Excuse me, papá. Mi nombre es Alejandra Juárez. Yo soy la esposa de un veterano de guerra que después de los ataques del 9/11, él fue a servir su país en Irak. Después de vivir 20 años en este país, me tengo que ir el 21 de junio. Voy a ser deportada. Atrás dejaré a mis hijas, que son ciudadanas americanas. Es muy injusto que yo, sin tener récord criminal y después de vivir en este país por 20 años, tenga que irme y dejar atrás mi esposo y mis hijas. Mi esposo sirvió a este país honorablemente. Las familias militares, y no solo las familias militares, toda la familia de ciudadanos americanos merecen una oportunidad. Necesitamos estar aquí para criar a nuestros hijos. Por favor, presidente Donald Trump, tenga compasión y ayúdenos a pasar un proyecto de ley donde las familias de militares y las familias de ciudadanos americanos puedan seguir aquí. Gracias a todos. Es todo.
Y gracias, doña Juárez, por su ayuda y sacrificios en nuestro país. Y nuestro gobierno federal necesita ayudar ahora. We are also joined and proud to have Vote Vets. Thank you for all the work that Vote Vets has been doing to help out. So many families are affected by this issue. And please, if you wouldn't mind addressing us for a few minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Will Fisher, and as mentioned, I'm the Director of Government Relations with Vote Vets. From time to time, I hear about a law or something being debated up on the Hill that one really has to question, like, does it really take a law to make that happen? We just heard this story just a moment ago. Do you think that you have to pass a law to ensure that, to go and tell people serving in the military that they're not going to get deported when they get back from a deployment, or their family's not going to get deported while they are on deployment, while they're actively engaged in serving this country? You know, probably the most talked about veteran of the last 24 months was a guy named Alexander Hamilton. And I lift that up because Alexander Hamilton, in addition to being a veteran, was also an immigrant to this country. Immigrants have played a vital part in our military, in our national security, going all the way back to the Washington's Army of the Revolution. And that continues to this day. Now, I can't add much more anything to what you've already heard, but I will say this. You know, I know the pressure of living in a combat zone. What I cannot fathom, though, is the pressure of living in a combat zone and living in the back of your mind the entire time that you might get kicked out of this country, the country you're serving when you get home. I can't imagine being out on a patrol and worried, yes, about my safety and the safety of my comrades while I'm out on patrol, but also wondering, is my spouse being deported as we speak back home? That is a pressure that I cannot imagine. It is for those reasons and the others that you've heard today that Vote Vets and our more than 500,000 members are so proud to stand alongside Congressman Soto, the other members you've heard of today, but also, and most importantly, along folks like you've already heard from here today. And I don't have anything else to add except just to say that an attack on immigrants is categorically an attack on veterans, whether you're talking about the veterans of today or the veterans of yesterday. Thank you so very much.
And thanks for being here on behalf of Vote Vets. Would you join me up front? We'll take a few questions. We've been told by DHS that they're reviewing the matter again now, particularly in light of a lot of publicity that's happened, and particularly our military news outlets have been huge to help focus on the plight of the Juarez family, and we recently saw other families in similar situations get a reprieve. So we have not heard a definitive answer yet, but we know they're reviewing the matter, and the focus of the press and the story of the Juarez family is helping us out greatly, and I'm optimistic that we're going to hear positive news before the June date. See, nosotros escuchamos al Departamento de Seguridad de Hogares que ellos están investigando el archivo ahora de la familia Juarez, y yo necesito agradecer todas las noticias y prensas de militaria, porque ellos enfocando en esta historia terrible está ayudando con mucha presión en aprobando el caso de la familia de Juarez.
What does it tell you about the government's priorities on immigration? They said they were going to go after, criminals and traffickers and people and drugs, and that they're targeting, the families of veterans and service members.
It tells me that if that's their priorities, they need to be sticking to them, and currently they are not. Our military families should be the last to go, if ever. And my bill is set to make sure that they would have a preference going forward, because of the fact that without their sacrifices, without their efforts, we cannot defend this country. And the role that spouses play are critical in that defense. While their spouses are on the front lines, they are at home making sure that the family, next generation of those who will answer the call, will be able to be there. Yo creo los esposos está esencial defendiendo nuestro país, y eso está parte de la línea de frontera en nuestra libertad en esta nación. Y yo creo, si la administración está diciendo, ellos está solamente tratando para tener deportaciones de personas criminales, enfocando en las familias de militares, está opósita de estas prioridades, y ellos necesitan cambiar estas prioridades. Sure. Speak from the heart, whatever you'd like to say.
Okay. Well, like my mom said earlier, my dad did sacrifice a lot for this country, and so we were already separated for that time while he was gone. So I can't really understand why we have to be separated again, especially when my mom has no criminal record. And I'm not saying this just because she's my mom, but she's a great person. Like anyone that knows her personally can tell you that she's a good woman. She's a great person, and she's just a great mom. And
She don't speak Spanish. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. She just understands but doesn't speak Spanish.
yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Can the gentleman from Outlet tell us, have you tried to...
Sí, un poquito.
I asked President Trump to please let my mom stay because she is a great mom, and I don't understand why I have to leave her. Because she's been there with me every day of my life, and I love her. And I can't imagine leaving her. Please, President Trump, I ask that you let her stay.
Thank you, both of you. You're both very brave. Would you like to?
We've asked the Department of Defense, and their position basically is that they don't believe that the spouses or parents, or people who have parents with deportation orders should be deported, but yet it doesn't seem to be that they're doing anything to pressure DHS or communicate with DHS. So what has your organization done, or what can they do with the Department of Defense?
What we're going to do is continue to lift up to the voice of our members that, yes, this is a moral issue. Obviously, we're also talking about a national security issue, because while people are worried about the possibility of being deported or possibility of their family being deported while they're out on a patrol or on deployment, that's a national security issue, because that person, that individual is not going to be able to, they're going to have that weighing on them, and that would be an extreme weight. So what we're going to continue to do is lift that up to say, look, Donald Trump, you hesitate never in using veterans and military families as political props. And you can't do that and then at the same time say, but we're going to deport military families and veterans as we speak. So Donald Trump, hey, where are you on this? Now, I have a pretty good idea of where he is, right? I mean, Donald Trump has consistently shown himself, when it comes to veterans and military families, to only be interested in those veterans and military families that he can use to advance his own political agenda or use as political props. And we're going to call him out through the voice of our members that right now you can't say you're pro-veteran or you're pro-military family while you are actively engaged, you and your administration, in deporting veterans and military families.
And I just want to add to that, this is an opportunity for the president to have some common ground on immigration. It's not too late. He talks about supporting military families. He has found only small common ground on immigration. I would hope this would be one of those areas where we can all agree, both Democrats and Republicans, the administration and Congress, that our military spouses need to be protected. Any other questions?
Yeah, Congressman, I'm kind of wondering, why do you suppose this would even be hard to pass? It seems so obvious.
Maybe you've been reading lately that immigration is kind of a controversial issue around here. And that's why we put together a narrow bill, hoping that this is something that is common ground. A lot of these more positive immigration bills get swept up into the greater debate, but we've seen some improvement on our deported veterans. I know a lot of you may be familiar with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus's work on veterans deported in Tijuana. Many of them have minor violations and were not discharged honorably as a result, but nothing that put this country in jeopardy or others in jeopardy. They just had a few poor choices, many of them related to addiction. And we saw some movement to allow some of those veterans to come back, some movement to make sure that there can be health care. And I know that Congressman Vargas was a big leader on that in our caucus. So that gives me hope that we could see some movement on this issue as well, whether it's legislation or just more of an internal policy to stop prioritizing and deporting the spouses. We'll take whatever we could get to have the Juarez family remain in the United States intact with Mrs. Juarez here. Any other questions? Did you want to say something? Okay. Okay, we'll take individual questions afterwards. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate it. This concludes the press conference.